Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ricky Aguda with the Society of Crop Agribusiness Advisors, welcoming you to today's segment of the Soka She Trades Masterclass Master Series, where we've been looking at optimizing production and market access for three very important horticultural value chains. That is French beans, peas, and avocado. This is our seventh segment in this series, and I believe you've all had a very good engagement over the last few weeks where we have been looking at um, very, very critical issues for success in the production of these value chain commodities and also in their marketing. Once again, the webinar series has been brought to you by this collaboration between SOCA, which is the Society of Crop Agribusiness Advisors. We bring together consultants and advisors in different fields of agribusiness, and we are working in collaboration with ITC She Trades Commonwealth Program, which is a support for women-owned businesses, strengthening their capacity to compete in global markets through a range of services, both advisory and also market linkage. We welcome you to the series and today's session, where we'll be looking at an overall set of next steps and how you can actually make progress in actualizing production and improve market access for your business. Just to start us off, we will be showing you briefly where you can access previous recordings and where you can access presentations from our last sessions, and you will see that shortly on your screen. On SOCA website, my colleague will be showing the SOCA website, which is www.socaa.or.ke. And on this website, we have a section where the presentations from the series so far can be accessed. So once you open the website on your browser, if you are looking at the sections, you would see we have resources page. It's just going to open in a minute. You will see the resources page, and under the resources page, you have Masterclass Series 2. So that link is opening in a short while. You can see news and resources. And Masterclass Series 2. So if you click on that tab, you will find you have access to all the recordings, all the presentations from the series to date. So for those who've been asking, where can we get the reference material for what we've done so far, this is where I would advise that you visit, and you will be able to get all the material as it is shown there. You can also visit our YouTube channel to get to view the actual sessions as recorded. There are links on this page, but you can also visit our YouTube channel to access the recordings. We will not go through that one now, but you can see it there. It is a Society of Crop Agribusiness Advisors, and we have a YouTube channel. This is very important so that we can actually refer back to what the panelists and presenters shared. We had very knowledgeable presenters who some are not able to join us or are trying to join us this afternoon, but on the website, you will be able to get all the material that they shared. I'd now like to request my colleague Joshua Ochiel and Nekesa Wafula to continue and take us through today's session. We look forward to a very interactive session. Please share any questions, any comments that you have in order for you to 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 make the best of your agribusiness investment in these three value chains. Welcome and thank you very much.
Thanks, Ricky. Welcome to this afternoon session. My name is Nekesa Wafula. We'll be hosting and moderating the session with my colleague. I'll let him introduce himself.
Okay, good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshua Ochiel. I've been your moderator for a number of series. Nekesa has been taking quite a number of them as well. And for today's series, I think Nekesa, you'll be on the driving seat. I will only co-assist where necessary. So ladies and gentlemen, we hope you'll have a very interactive session today. Today is more of just a summary of what we have done before, the discussions that we have had with you, and the knowledge that each one of us has tried to impact, if it actually did. And at the end of the day, we would really appreciate your feedback, just like the CEO has said. And we hope that this is going to be a very interactive session again. Nekesa.
Thank you so much, Joshua. So we'll just dive straight into the questions. We are hoping that we can have more of our panelists joining in. So feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A. Winnie, could you please mute your... Yeah, thank you. So we'll have some Q&A. We have the Q&A chat, which you can put in your questions. Feel free to ask us and interact with us. If you're not able to access it, you can as well type it in the chat box. So just diving straight into the questions. Looking at the scene that agriculture is in right now, the current scene. If we are talking about agronomy, could you please share with us looking at the whole scenario, share with us in terms of what crops you've interacted with and also the experience you've had just in a nutshell, probably also and the challenges. And probably before that, we'd have to have an introduction starting with Jen and then Lydia, followed by Apollo. Thank you. Karibuni.
Thanks, Nekesa. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jane Musindi. I've been with you for a couple of sessions and I'm happy to be here to interact with all of us. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Nekesa and the participants. It's exciting to be here to witness the final session. My name is Lydia Kimani. I have also been part of the masterclass series and it has been quite insightful and looking forward to finishing strong. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, Polo Awar, right in the village, and it's been an exciting experience. Thanks to Joshua, to Nekesa and the soccer fraternity. I'm looking forward to winding up on a very high note. Thanks, we'll be in touch.
Thank you,
Thank you
Apollo.
so much. Yeah, I hope I've not forgotten anyone.
Yeah, for Apollo, I almost thought the pole behind him is a crucifix, but it's okay, Apollo. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I almost asked if it was a tractor because I thought he was sitting on one. But anyway, so just looking at the industry in general, could you please share with us your experience when it comes to, producing all these export crops when you're looking at French beans, avocado, and any other crop that you've dealt with in terms of export crops? What are the challenges you've had in the service of being an agronomist or even in the agribusiness sector? Because we are looking at it in the picture of you are an agronomist, but also there's an aspect of you running the business. What are these challenges? Maybe you can share with us and the audience. Jen, and then we can have Lydia and then Apollo. Thank you.
Thanks, Nekesa. I actually advise a lot of farmers, smallholder farmers. So the first problem I encounter is that they get information from their neighbors, which is not a bad thing if the neighbor actually has any scientific background to what they are doing. But what we get is that there'll be a lot of trial and error if we go in that direction, because the neighbor will only, he may be a lead farmer in your area, but he will only give you information as far as, and advice as far as he has experienced it. Maybe he got advice from a professional, so he's now advising you on what he experienced, but he'll not know why he was asked to do what he did. So like just last week, I got to an onion farmer who unfortunately had a disease on his farm already, purple blotch. So this farmer, in his panic, got that lead farmer, and the lead farmer also panicked and told him, buy this fungicide and apply every 2 days. Now, if you get a crop that has been over applied pesticides on, chances are, one, it will have very high residues. And if not, you will have wasted half of your intended returns on applying things that you shouldn't have applied. All I say is get a professional to advise you. If the professional is not coming soon enough, the agrovet somehow does some job. But if you then buy chemicals from your neighborhood duka, read the instructions on the bottle that you bought, because the instructions are always there. And number two, look for a professional to advise you. Most farmers, I think most Kenyans consider themselves farmers because number one, when you retire, you want to be a farmer. When you are idle, like if you finished college and you have no job, you're told to try farming. Well, farming needs to be taken a little more seriously than that. That is if you want to run it as a business. If you want to run it as a hobby, that's different. But if you want to run it as a business, do it the way businessmen would approach a business for success. Not just because you want to look at something green when you go to the farm, or you want to see an animal or count how many heads you have. Farming should be done as a business, and in such, look for advice from a professional. Thanks, Nekesa.
Thank you, Jen. Lydia, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Nekesa. So my experience has been just there has been serious information asymmetry. So you find that farmers, like to just cite what Jane has said, they are not aware of where to get information, and sometimes the information is available, and sometimes they are even spoiled for choice. But that disconnect on the bearers of the information and those who are in it brings a serious challenge, and therefore then this now creates the need for extension or advisory services to bridge this gap. In addition to that, there are serious gaps on how farmers do not understand how policy processes affect their ability to do business. So that also prevents them from being aware even of basic things like available markets for what they're producing, even available opportunities, support, whether it's in kind, in terms of inputs, or even like what we are having now as a stimulus package for those who are in specifically now exports. So you find that that disconnect has also resulted in a lot of challenges and compromised productivity in agriculture. This is also affecting the uptake of research and innovations coming from the research arena. There is a disconnect in that also. So you find that there is research work is going on. Farmers are also conducting their farming practices, but because no one is bridging the gap, then we continue to experience low productivity in that instance. Finally, there is very little appreciation of advisory services, even with the farming community. You find that they will very easily dismiss you and say, the information that you're providing can very easily get from Google, the online farmers, and they can always get someone to get them that information. So by extension, it has compromised the profile of advisory, and which it seemed to be ideally, because initially it was provided by government, it should be free, and there is no justification for that kind of service. But we find that at least with the horticulture sector, with the stringent market access requirements by the destination markets, there is a significant level of appreciation of advisory services, because without that, then you are almost condemned to not being able to access markets. So the actual challenge now we have to start addressing is for the domestic markets. How do we raise the profile of extension and the value that is aligned to it? And as we shift from subsistence to commercialized agriculture, there is need for that paradigm shift. That extension is not good suggestions or good ideas. It is actually information received from advisory and extension service providers could also give you competitive advantage in the marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia. Apollo, maybe you can share your experience as well.
Yeah, thanks, Teresa. I'm an agribusiness practitioner, meaning I'm a farmer and also an agribusiness advisor. So I get involved a lot with farmers, as well as hands-on experience in farming itself. And the challenge here, some of the challenges or some of my experiences in this domain is quite extensive. The battle with the climate issues, the battle with just getting to the market at the right time, the battle of having a good mix of issues to do with rotation and everything. It's easier to work from an advisory perspective, because that's more or less typical textbook experience. But now when the rubber meets the road, it's really, the reality is really strike home a lot. And some battles that we've experienced in this domain, especially on issues with the climate change, just at the towards the end of last year into the early parts up to towards maybe mid this year, we had serious flooding issues, and of course the damage that goes with it in respect to cropping and the production system is out of this world. And then pretty soon now we have a forewarning on La Nina phenomena, drought is coming. Okay, then the level of preparedness to handle crises such as those in farming are crazy. Yesterday, I was sitting down with another farmer, and we were discussing just the typical challenges that we farmers go through. And right now we are looking at the prices, especially for domestic crops, onions, tomatoes, and name it. Due to the COVID issues, we have had a serious upsurge of COVID farmers, and therefore that translates to a huge glut in the local domain, meaning that there is an oversupply of stuff in the market, and the prices now for commodities, even if we start to project and to plan in whichever way, the prices are not what had been projected. And if you typically, being an agribusiness practitioner, we work with business plan, we see the profit scenario, we work on break-even points. And the challenge now for me is, how then do I identify as a farmer and also as an advisor, what's the best crop mix? How do I categorize everything? What can I help a farmer navigate through as they encounter market issue, weather-related issues, the policy-related issues, and in an environment where the farmer bears all the burden? It's whatever happens, there is no, literally we have no structures to support the farmer, the guy who literally has hands-on with the crop. And I think that for me is one of those key challenges that I just wish I could have certain solutions that would really percolate down to farmers. We've looked at things, and I've looked at several opportunities that have come in, or whatever it is, as proponents of farming support, and hitting down the ground level, we literally don't see some of the resources percolating down to the farmer. And I think that's, for me, is one of those things that I wish in my lifetime I would be able to help to achieve, and to get to that grip and certify those kind of challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Apollo. Those are very, big issues. They might look small, but quite, big in their own way, especially when you're talking about resources reaching the farmer. Maybe Joshua, you could probably add some questions when it comes to that topic. Joshua, do we still have you online? Okay.
Sorry, Teresa, I was on mute, but yeah, I'm back. Okay, Apollo, I think one of the questions that come up most often is farmers would actually like to ask questions about the market itself, because you are also an expert in this market access segment. What are the most promising markets for French beans and avocado?
Okay, to start with, if I'm to venture into French beans and avocado market, I definitely have to have a plan on who is going to buy my product. I would not do it as a speculative grower, but I would do it with a market in mind. So largely for French beans, there's two ways that we can do it. That's directly working with an exporter, or if we have we've met the requisite regulatory issues, then we can go to do direct marketing into the various markets that are open to us, such as the European Union, the UK, and the Middle East, and probably if we are also able to meet the USDA requirements into the US. So those would be the key. There's a very little consumption locally, so I wouldn't even look at growing French beans for the local market, and that's it. Now, avocado is a growing market, and there's various categories of avocados. There's a jumbo avocados, and then there is the Fuerte and Hass type of avocados. So on that kind of basis, avocados currently provide a good niche, especially if we have if we are able to have the volumes. So I would again look at it with the same way I'm looking at the French beans. I would either identify myself with an exporter who is able then to consolidate product to push forward to the market, or if there is sufficient scale, then it is possible to identify certain buyers in Europe, in the Middle East, even up to even the Chinese market. All this, they are dependent on the requirements for those markets. There was also a growing local consumption. I think a few years back, we used to buy avocados at about 5 shillings a piece. Nowadays, when I go to the market to buy fruits, especially the jumbo types, it's anything between 30, even up to 50. So, of course, now that tends to create that sort of market issues. Avocado also has other, if you look at the avocado value chain, there's a fresh, there's processed, so it has various lines in which you can use the avocados on. So whether it is being bought by the processors or by fresh buyers, that's how I would identify my niche within these two value chains. Thanks, Joshua.
Yeah, thanks, Apollo. I think it is quite important that the farmers or the growers know exactly where they will sell their produce, and that's why this question of the most promising markets becomes very vital, so that we don't have farmers just walking into the field of growing without knowing where the product is going to end up. And in that case, maybe just as a brush on the same question, how can these farmers get this information about the markets? Where or do they just have to maybe work with the already existing organizations like FPIC or HCD? Are there any other avenues that farmers could get to the market other than via getting information from these organizations?
Within the EU, the Dutch government has developed a market information portal. It's the CBI, I think it's cbi.org, that stipulates various products that are in market and how one should be prepared in preparing their product for market. That's one. At the local arena, we have organizations such as Fresh Produce Consortium, FPIC, Kenya Flour Council, the Avocado Society of Kenya that have various networks. There is also Coleacp, coleacp.org. All these various provide certain information that would be able then to guide one on to how to identify market. At the end of the day, we have to do quite a bit of research. Then the other, I think some of the other, in the earlier days, we used to visit the trade attaches of various countries and try to look within that those regions of the countries who are buyers of the products that we have. And then now having achieved that, at least then we have information. So I believe information is quite scattered and it's all out there. But if we can work with starting from the basic institutions like FPIC, Kenya Flour Council, Fresh Produce Consortium, the Avocado Society of Kenya, SOCA. That way we are able, even ITC, that way we are able then to gain some foothold on identifying markets for the products that we have.
Okay.
Thanks, Joshua.
Thank you very much, Apollo. I think that is quite intensive in terms of information provided. And I think maybe for the time being, I will give you a break and proceed with maybe other questions. I would like to maybe ask Jen, maybe she can explain to us a little bit on the kind of client services that an exporting company may offer to sustain the market and its market share. Jen, I believe you are on spot with this kind of question. Could you just take us before we move on to the next questions that were prepared for us for this day?
Thanks, Joshua. Before getting into the question, I'd like to spell out that exporting companies are diverse, just like farmers are diverse. They range from SME, small businesses, to large established businesses, where large, they have their own marketing systems within the international market. And the smaller ones are the ones now that link into those marketing systems. So depending on the scale of the business, an exporting company can choose to offer services that will benefit them. For example, if they control the quality of product that enters the market, then they will be able to impart this knowledge onto their farmers. They can provide the seeds at a cost. They can provide some fertilizer at the cost. They can provide pesticides at a cost, and then work out with the farmer like a loan, and work out with the farmer how then this farmer pays back. They can also decide to offer technical support to make sure that the product that gets to their farm, because everything within that chain is under their control. So they know exactly what product needs to land on that market, what they have promised to sell to their market. So they will have more of controlling a controlling interest in what the farmer is growing. But the smaller ones, because they mainly deal with wholesalers and they do not really have a control of what the market will ask for, may not have the strengths to provide a lot of these services to the farmer. Because again, if we go like to French beans, different varieties of seeds will produce different sizes of beans. So depending on what their customer will ask them for, then that is the product they will go out and look for among the growers. So it depends on how much control the exporting companies have. But as a minimum, I believe most exporting companies will offer technical support, because at the end of the day, the technical quality of the product that lands on the market also affects them. If it gets there and it is intercepted for either residue or insects, then they'll have a problem. But again, on top of that, it will depend on the size of the exporting company and the control that the exporting company has with the product that they sell. Thanks, Joshua.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Thank you very much for that answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we will move to a slightly...
Okay, thank you, Jen. At the call.
Nekesa, please continue. Please go ahead, Nekesa.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. When now we are looking at the poll, there are some poll questions that have been asked, and the first one was, which commodity are you growing or exporting? So when we look at this, you find that about 44% grow French beans for export, 11% grow for peas, 44% on avocados, 22% grow other crops. And then if you look at the second poll, when we are talking about optimization of the production, then you look at 50% are looking at post-management, post-harvest management, 13% are looking at joining farmer cooperatives, and 75% are looking at using of ITC market tool analysis. And if you look at all these, I would like to pose some questions to our panelists today. What tips can you give in terms of optimizing production? What kind of tips can you give when it comes to optimizing this production for French beans, or even looking at avocados in general? Then on the same case, when you're looking at market, what tips can you also offer? And I'll open this floor to Jen, then Lydia, then Apollo. Thank you.
Thanks, Nekesa. I will leave the agronomy question to Apollo because he's best placed to handle that. Let me try and answer the one for market access. What I've seen from most farmers is they really do not plan ahead of before getting into an enterprise. The best thing to do once you have done your business plan is to have a marketing strategy. And with this marketing strategy, it doesn't have to be a very elaborate strategy. You have to have options for where your market is, and if that market fails, what is your plan B? So do your research, understand your competition, what they are doing that you could do or do better. The product that you want to grow, the market that is destined for, what is the culture over there? What do they use it for? And for example, if we are not dealing with chicken, but if you're doing chicken and you don't understand, for example, halal, the way the Islam people, the Muslim people like it, and you want to sell it to somewhere like Dubai, then you see you'll have a problem there. So research on your market, understand the culture where you're targeting. Local laws, regulations, standards, this cannot be overemphasized. You can lose all your money in not following the laid out regulations, and your market access will be curtailed by not following the standards that have been set out. And then build awareness and trust. Some farmers, especially French bean farmers, you'll find them hopping from one export company to another one, thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. Stick to one export company unless there's a dispute. That way you grow together, and this export company will get to know you better and know where you have issues with. And maybe sometimes I've seen some that will actually help you out when you have a problem. There's a company that was for its long-serving farmers. If you went into, for example, like Apollo said, this climate change issues, if you had a flood on your farm, if you had a drought or your pumps failed or whatever, and then you couldn't get the harvest that they were expecting, they would still pay you for the expense that you spent on that farm. And if there's a chance that they can't sell the product that you're growing, even the market usually fails sometimes, they could still pay you for, at least so that you don't lose out. They pay you for the cost that you put into the soil. So build trust with whatever market you're targeting, whether it's an exporter or whether it's the international market. And then now, when it comes to agreeing with the market, make sure you know what the payment terms are. You agree them, and then put this agreement in writing. It's no longer possible to have handshakes. You have to put it in writing, and both of you have to agree on what has been put on paper. You need to know your rights as a supplier, what you can do if there's a dispute, and where the limits lie if there's a complaint. And then, just as I said, process must be done formally. And then what we forget in Kenya is precision. You can't say you have beans 5 tons today, 2 tons tomorrow, and then nothing for the whole year. There has to be a way to consistently be in the market. And if you say you can do 2 tons, do not give me 1 ton, and then have an excuse for the other 1 ton. When you say you have 2 tons, better have the 2 tons continuously. And then pay extra attention to packaging and cold chain, especially for avocado farmers. It is not right to transport avocados in open pickups and open trucks. You need crates, you need to understand cold chain management, and you need to understand how long that product needs to stay on your farm before it gets to the pack house, and how long it needs to stay in the pack house before then it goes into a cold room. If you don't understand those basics, you and the exporter will have a problem. Thanks, Nekesa.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Before Nekesa let you go, I think in an extension of what you've just talked about, we have a question on the kind of competition that we will be facing or we will be dealing with in the fresh produce market. Could you tell us some of the things that or the issues that you think might be an impediment to us, and especially issues that will be caused by competition rising? Because as far as we know, the market is lucrative, and we believe that every other country that has the correct climate and the correct rainfall or growing conditions will be rooting for these markets. So in your own opinion, what kind of competition should we gear ourselves for going forward?
Thanks, Joshua. We need to realize that we have very good human resource in Kenya. And we as consultants, agronomists, and market people are being called to advise on how other countries can compete with Kenya. Most of us have advised in Uganda, Tanzania. So the competition is coming, and it's coming hard. They have decided to do things seriously and professionally. Rwanda is already way ahead. Now, the competition here is that we are so used to, people say getting to number 1 is easy, but staying number 1 is very hard, because we got to number 1 and then relaxed. We think that we are the best at everything. We are not. People are getting better at systems. Look at how our product is being intercepted. But if you look at it, product from Uganda may have worse chemical problems, but because us ourselves are competing within ourselves, then the information is getting out there. We are the ones shooting ourselves in the foot. So the competition, let me just say, we are our own worst enemies. We are refusing to improve with the times. Instead of getting better, we are looking for shortcuts. But that could also be that we are paying higher taxes. Let's just put that in the open. Our product is very expensive. I have a colleague who would say it's not really, we shouldn't only look at the taxes, we should actually also look at the productivity of the farm so that we can level out. Our neighbors like Uganda are really close to organic. They do not know much about chemicals, so they misuse the chemicals over there. But their product is actually, if you look at their farms, they are very self-sustaining because they use very little fertilizer. We have either overused or severely underused our fertilizers. So therefore, misused, not underused, misused. So therefore, our soils are not sustaining the productivity that we have. And therefore, we are, when the yield is lower than what is expected, you know that product will be very expensive. So we are not competing very well first on the costs of production. We are not competing very well on the final quality because now, since the costs are very high, we are taking shortcuts to lower those costs. When we get to the market, we have a problem. Look at how we are trying to get to the market early by harvesting avocados earlier than most. We shoot ourselves in the foot. So we need to be aware of the fact that competition is there. We need to up our game. We need to produce optimally for our soils and for our climate and for our market. Thank you, Joshua.
All right, Jen, thank you very much for that, that answer. I would like to engage Apollo with just one more question before we move on to Lydia, because I think Lydia also has quite a full plate of issues or questions that needs to be tackled. Apollo, when it comes to terms of trade, and one of the things that come up is the issue of the payments. A while back, there were issues to do with the, sometimes payments coming late or just disappearing altogether. In your opinion, has this issue been resolved? Are we now in a state whereby an exporter is assured of getting back their money? And if not, are there any interventions that come from your organizations or any of the organizations that are taking part in this whole chain? Because that was a real issue before, and I'm not sure if it is already done. So basically, the question is, what are the payment terms, and are both sides, benefiting from those terms? What's your opinion?
Thanks, Joshua. I think the payment terms would be business-to-business agreement. The transactional issues are equally business-to-business. Now, that domain is still, a lot of it is still heavily dependent on the business-to-business agreement that has been entered upon during that transaction. Usually, what we do advise as an association is that prior to entering any business arrangement with an importer from any country, first of all, visit the trade attaché of that importing country. Get to know the genuineness of that business, whether they're registered and everything. So it's important to do what we call a due diligence assessment prior to getting into any business arrangement with anybody. Once you have met that criteria, then it is possible you can sign up your business terms. Because usually what would happen is I would hear that there's a very lucrative export business, probably in France or wherever it is. Take a flight or do a few emails and phone calls and start shipping without knowing exactly whether the shipment is to a ghost company or an unidentified company or to a tag or a crook somewhere. The things that happen in committee where you'd find crazy requests to send money to a certain line are still the same things that you'd find happening out there. The fellows out there are also they also have crooks. So work on your due diligence, and then that's the only time that you can be able to satisfy the criteria on whether to start doing business or not. So yes, there would still be, even to date, people who have not been have had issues with their clients outside. And even to date, you'd still find cases of non-payment. And the only recourse that you have is through the horticulture crops development and the embassy of the importing company. So visit those ones, and then now we could be able to have all these matters sorted. But we also have the same thing where you have cases where importers have spent resources to for a so-called local investor in terms of preparing for produce, and then when resources have been sent, the entrepreneur goes missing in action. So it has an effect both ways. But I think it is important, whether you are an importer or whether you are an exporter, or a farmer, to do a proper due diligence. If I am a farmer and I'm signing a contract with an exporter, I have to make sure that that this is also witnessed by the local agricultural county representative, as well as the local HCD representative, so that in the event that there is any contentious issues that have come in as in the line of doing business, that at least you have some point of arbitration that can be arrived at. So locally we have those arrangements, and then now internationally, please, the reason why we have embassies is because of various interactions, and trade is one of them. So it will be important to visit that. Thanks, Joshua.
Okay, thanks, Apollo. I think that is very clear, precise and concise. I would like to now rope in Lydia into the next question, even as our polls continue. So besides just the question and answers that we are receiving now from the panelists, kindly take very active participation on what is going on your screen. And this is actually meant for you, because we really want to know how you feel, or what areas that are of importance to you. So please look at the screen even as you follow the question and answers from the panelists. Lydia, of course, there's no business that takes place in a jungle. There always have to be some regulations and rules and policies that are put in place to enable the business to run smoothly. As a matter of policy or regulations, what kind of policies would you think or do you know of that are put in place for farmers to facilitate trade of the two products that we are talking about, that is the beans and the avocados? And of course, please take us through some of the regulations and the policies in a form that also in a way that it also summarizes, because this is actually the last of this series, and therefore we will need as much information to do with the regulations and the policies. So could you take us through this, Lydia?
Thank you very much, Joshua. So maybe to begin with, I'd just like to say that yes, there has been significant advancements in the policy space, and you realize that well, for us, we may be addressing issues as standalones. It's actually very interrelated. So you find that when we discuss issues of marketing, so we have policies that have already prioritized the commodities that are in conversation. So we have the National Export Development and Promotion Strategy, And the horticulture has been one of the sectors that has been prioritized by virtue of the fact by virtue of its value in terms of foreign exchange. So you find that one of the things that government is prioritizing is product diversification and even market diversification. So you find that for our exports, we have traditionally exported to Europe. So you find that aside from that, and I'll give an example of the times of COVID, you have realized that once Europe is geographically remote compared to where Kenya is situated. So when there was lockdown on international travel, it significantly impacted on our ability to continue exporting without hitches. So that also now further reinforces or buttresses the importance of diversifying our markets. And that is why you'll find that that has been complemented by government by the signing of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area as a way of just reducing the distance and also the cost, and also building resilience for our value chains. We don't want to be so dependent on markets that in the event of shocks, whether economic, health, financial, that put our value chains in crisis. And the government is also very keen and has been driving the agenda of industrialization, both at the regional level and even at the continental level. At the regional level, I'm sure now we are aware that we have a common trade policy, we have an industrialization policy. And one of the things that we are looking at is with industrialization, there is a complement to agriculture. We want to transition from exporting raw commodities that are very vulnerable to commodity price shocks in the international market. And we are now starting to look at, besides Russia and Europe and the UK, who else is a good market for our avocados? And do we have potential in the African continent, for example, of a market for our avocados? So those kinds of diversification, and now we are looking at exporting frozen avocados to China. That is part of product and market diversification. China was not in the fold of the markets that the Kenyan government was targeting, but now has since been recruited. And then we also have diversified, rather than just export whole fruit. Now the fruit going to China has gone into an additional level of processing. So you find that that has also has a significant bearing. In addition to these policies, it is said that planning, money follows plans. So as an entrepreneur in either one of these value chains that are in focus today, it's very, very important to understand what are the policy provisions in your choice commodity value chain. So you find that in addition to just being prioritized in times of COVID, the government has prioritized the horticulture sector in terms of access to the guarantee, the stimulus package for the SMEs operating in the horticulture sector. And this is basically to make sure that there is access to trade finance, which is a significant cost in the exporting business, and there isn't interruption. So while agriculture has suffered limited access to credit, you find that your choice of value chain, if it is a priority for government, then it makes it much easier to even access things like finance and other additional incentives for you to continue operating. Again, like I had said earlier, Europe is one of our largest markets, and you realize that they have a European Green Deal that is actually positioned to help Europe transition to a low carbon continent or economic region by the year 2050. So what does that mean or translate for us as now that Europe is a key export destination? So you find that our government has already made transition and made sure that we will not be hampered or will not lose market access based on the fact that now a lot of their sourcing of commodities and even export is going to be prioritized from countries that are demonstrating sustainable practices of production and even consumption. So you find that with our government, we now already have the green economy strategy, implementation strategy, the GESIP, the implementation plan. So this is the government's pathway, roadmap to help the country transition to a low carbon emission economy. So by this, now we are looking at issues of circularity. How can raw materials from one commodity become input supply to the other commodity? So we'll be seeing a lot of the organic waste that especially comes from agriculture now start processing, looking for becoming a good market now for fertilizer, organic fertilizer. So we also have the government has the climate smart agriculture, the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Strategy, and we have the implementation tool, the Kenya Climate Smart Implementation Framework, which is the tool to deliver on our climate change commitments. So basically what the government is saying that we are looking towards transitioning to ensure that we continue to build resilience for our value chains. And one of the things that the government is going to go heavily and invest in is climate smart agriculture. So for you as an entrepreneur in these value chains, what are some of the modalities that you are engaging in to ensure that that your practices are also climate smart? So it will not only you'll not only be making a contribution towards a green transition or a green economy transition, but it also gives you competitive advantage. Again, why is climate smart agriculture very important? Apollo made the remarks of how changes in climate are affecting our ability to be competitive. So it is important that we start realizing that our temperatures are getting warmer. Products like French beans require higher altitudes. So what happens when the altitudes that we are producing in become warmer and we don't have varieties that are ready to make the transition? So you find that that is one of the things, as part of climate smart agriculture, these are the investments that government is going to be looking on for the commodity value chains that have been prioritized for export orientation. Are we now prioritizing research to climate resilient varieties? Jen mentioned, you asked about the issue of market. So you find that one of our greatest competitors is Morocco and Egypt. Morocco and Egypt are situated in the northern African part of the continent. It's slightly warmer. So you find that if they are going to, if they are our close competitors, especially for the European market, they already have a head start in terms of their products travel a shorter distance, and they are already accustomed to producing in warmer climates. However, should we fail to start, should our French beans fail to adapt to the warmer climate, we will lose our market share to Morocco and Egypt. So you find that those are some of the things that
Lydia, I'm going to cut you short. Hold that thought, so that we can go to the poll and probably open the floor for the audience to be able to ask their questions live. Today we are going to actually take the questions live. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand, and the moderator, the organizers will be able to unmute you so that you can be able to share questions. So just looking at the poll, we have some questions that have been asked, and one of them is what has been your single business biggest challenge in agriculture? And we can see that 67% is saying capital access, 11% is saying advisory services, 22% is saying compliance to regulatory requirements, 22% is saying understanding how changing global trends impact on your business, 44% plugging into the policy reform space through association. So I like it that Lydia has actually touched on some of the issues that are actually being experienced by farmers, and we hope that these talks can now be actualized on the ground, and that farmers can benefit from these strategies that the government is putting in place. Then we also have what tips on optimizing production have been most beneficial to you as an audience or even to the participants. We find that 50% have benefited from field management advice, 67% on seedling selection, and 50% on optimal use of pesticides. So through this, we are able to share the feedback that we've had in terms of what we have actually shared throughout the master classes, the webinars that we've had since the beginning of last month, since the mid of last month, so that we can be able to even better the services. So on to our final question, and this might tie in well with what Lydia had actually been finalizing on. So I'll give her just 1 minute, Lydia, 1 minute only to finalize on this. What services do you envision as an agribusiness entrepreneur or as an agribusiness advisor? What services can we give to our farmers? And we have about a few minutes to 4:15 so that we can open it to the audience. So I'll give each one of you just 1 or 1.5 minute max to be able to, share what kind of services you feel would be the best that you can offer to these farmers. Apollo, you've mentioned the gap that is there between the, the resources, the sharing of resources. What is your vision actually? And I'll start with Jen, then on to Apollo, and Lydia, you can finish as you finish off the issues on regulation. Karibuni. Jen?
Nekesa, sorry, could you just, I lost you somewhere. Could you just repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question is, what kind of services do you envision giving to the farmers, especially when you're talking about this whole aspect of looking at the market, looking at production holistically? When you're looking at that, what kind of services as an agribusiness advisor do you envision being offered to the farmer to enable that they can have optimal production and optimal market access?
Thanks. So when we talk about market access, at the end of the day, the product must be in the form that the market expects. So it must have followed all the standards that are expected. If it is all the clauses in a standard that it is expected of that product, it should be chemically okay. It should have been produced by an ethical system. You should treat your workers right. You should treat your environment right. That is what standards do. And part of it lends credit to what Lydia has just gone through about climate issues. So market access is actually now how you get into the market with a product that fits that market. So the advisory system, that the advisory services that I would or we would be able to offer the farmers is holistic, to ensure that they have when they get to the market, they can actually access it. Now, if then we find out that we do not have, say, I do not have the practicing agronomy knowledge, I can get an agronomist who has been practicing in that field to be able to advise the farmer adequately. If it is irrigation, then would get somebody to advise the farmer on the optimal irrigation system to use for that area in order to be sustainable and to make sure that they use whatever is scarce sustainably. If it is, for example, labor issues, then we'd get somebody in HR to be able to advise adequately. But at the end of the day, when we are guaranteeing that product market access, we should be able to tick for that customer all the clauses that they would require. Has it done this? Has it done that? Has it been produced? For example, right now, there's an issue with tomatoes. So the tomato, you'll realize tomatoes grown in a greenhouse, no farmer is complaining about. The people who are suffering are people with tomatoes in the open, because the quality of that tomato cannot be guaranteed. You will find that maybe the dudus are there, maybe they have some infection of some sort, the size is not right. There are very many issues. But then if this farmer was to study the market and not just hear that there's a market for tomatoes and rush to it, if you produce a product that fits nicely inside that market, then you will not have an issue producing the product, even for local consumption. Basically, we ensure that whatever the farmer produces fits into the market that is being targeted. Thanks, Nekesa.
Apollo, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Nekesa. We build businesses fit for the market. So we look at what you're looking at, and establish backwards the steps that you require in order to meet that sort of. So in terms of advisory, it is, as Jen said, it's very holistic. There's the agronomy issues, there is the marketing aspects, there's the how-to, there's the establishment of farms, there is working to align objectives with from end to end, in order that the entrepreneur is able to meet the aspirations or the requirements of the market, and that's ideally what sort of advisory services that would be provided. I think that's briefly how could explain it from my perspective. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Apollo. And just to send a reminder is that you're free to raise your hand. Today, we are going to take all the questions live from the audience. If you're shy to say it live, so you can still type it in the chat or in the Q&A section of the webinar, so that you can be able to address it. Lydia, maybe you can finalize on the question as well.
Okay, thanks, Nekesa. So I wish to agree with both Jane and Apollo that yes, indeed, advisory services should be holistic. And I'd like to just maybe unpack it some more and say that advisory now will have to run from all the way from R&D inputs to even consumer preferences, because from what you have, at least from what Jane and Apollo have shared about the market experiences, it is the consumers who are dictating what is to be sold in the global market. So extension and advisory services needs to also be very strong on understanding consumer preferences, then translating that to business opportunities, and now cascading it down to the farmers. But then you realize that the horticulture sector is dominated by, to a large extent, large-scale farmers who also onboard smallholder farmers as outgrowers. So you realize that the bulk of our production is done by smallholder farmers who are categorized as poor. So again, I will reiterate that there is need for farmers to come together under umbrella associations like the cooperatives, because you realize that if you're going to do holistic advisory, it becomes very expensive. And even its deployment and the administration costs that come with giving advisory services to an individual farmer, it does not make economic sense. But when these farmers come together in a cooperative society that is commercially oriented, then it becomes very easy now to even cost advisory services that are holistic. You're able to now do a deep dive that looks at the value chain end to end, right from R&D all the way to consumer behavior. So maybe just to finalize on the bit on the policies, I'd like to make just a mention that while we're in the agriculture space, you find that there's quite a bit happening, and I think we covered it when we did the cross-cutting issues. There's quite a bit happening outside agriculture that is really influencing our ability to trade and trade even competitively, and even affect our ability to do that increase productivity. So one of the other things I'd like to mention is that in the ICT sector, we now have the data protection policy. So while it may not seem relevant right now, you remember that COVID has fast-tracked or has catalyzed the process, the need to automate a lot of systems. And this includes our customs procedures, so that we reduce the time it takes for clearance of goods, whether it is for export or for import. So with this, with the automation is going to come, we are looking at getting into an era where we will be using e-signatures to sign off consignments for exports. So for that to be commissioned, then we need to have regulations that protect that the digital signatures and ensure security, so that there is no forgery, and assure and grant quality assurance. So you realize that again, going back to that previous point, that when extension and advisory services become holistic, you're able to factor in all these changing dynamics in the space of operation, and then advise farmers as in accordingly, so that they're able to remain for business continuity and also for building resilience. Yes, I think that is pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Lydia, Apollo, and Jane. Back to our polls, and there's a question that was asked on how have you ever used the services of a qualified agronomist or agribusiness advisor? So 67% say yes and 33% say no. And if we are looking at how can advisors make their services accessible to agribusiness entrepreneurs, 38% say having a call center, 75% working with county extension staff, and 50% making production guides available. That's 50%. So we can see that the county extension staff really would play a very big role when it comes to this. So maybe just one question before I hand over the floor to Joshua is when you're looking at county extension and the fact that it's demand driven and all these policies that are being put in place to cater for smallholder farmers, where do you see us as a country heading to, considering it's demand driven and not we have stopped actually going to the farmer, rather we are waiting for the farmers to come to us. And we know that for every one extension officers, then we are talking about 10,000 farmers. How will that be solved in terms of policy? Thank you, Lydia.
Thanks very much, Nekesa. So from just coming back from your question, so you realize that from government policy, that's the National Agriculture Sector Extension Policy and the National Agriculture Livestock Extension Policy, the stand of government with regard to provision of extension services is pluralistic. Pluralistic in the sense that whether you're an NGO or private sector or even a government official, then there is provision. It is open for you to provide services. And one of the things that I'd like to mention at this, it's a good thing that the issue of county extension services is being preferred. So there is need for SOCA to partner with counties, because as it stands, government is not able to deploy extension services. And this is because, to begin with, we have run out of resources. So we have hit our debt ceiling with the international financial lenders. And then you find that there are lots of leaks and the demands across sectors of the economy. So we now have to move to a private sector oriented extension approach. And this is the commodity specific approach, which we see working in horticulture. And I also see now the dairy sector is coming up very strongly. So we have the likes of the Dungori dairies embedding extension service for their farmers. We have the likes of Brookside doing the same thing. So we are now looking at a new dawn. Previously, we had the government dominate, but now in the era of pluralistic extension service provision, then we are now looking at the commodity specific approach. So this gives a lot of opportunity, especially to organizations like SOCA, because this is an untapped potential. However, I will reiterate that the issue of our farmers being in the bracket of the poor, then for it to make any business sense, they have to be organized and they have to be coordinated under a producer group association, a cooperative, so that you're able to spread the cost of extension and deliver meaningful advisory services. In addition, this is going to be in support of the agriculture sector growth and transformation strategy that now is seeking to transition agriculture from subsistence to commercially oriented agriculture going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lydia. I think you've summarized everything in the best manner that all of us can understand. We would like to now move on to a new segment, and this is taking questions from the audience. I think this is something that was not done before, but which we would like to incorporate in this session today. I don't know from the background crew if all the tools are available for the audience to make their questions. I hope we have shared everything that will enable them to do it without any flaws. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are online and you have any question in your mind that you would like to to raise or comment, this is your time. Please feel free to do so. Okay, in the meantime, as we think about that, because I know it could be a bit disturbing, it's new to all of us. As you do that, I just want to say to believe that we have so far gained enough knowledge from our discussions that we have had all along. And mainly, most of us have actually gained a lot of information. We have also enhanced what we already know as far as the whole subject of the crops, of the two crops, that is beans and avocados, are concerned. We have provided all the avenues through which the farmers and the aspiring exporters can access information related to maximizing production, accessing the market, and also the regulations and the policies that that govern this trade. So I hope you'll be able to use this information and the tools as we go forward. So we still keep the floor open so that anybody who has a question and would like to participate in it, in the discussion, please continue. Amongst our panelists, if there's anyone who has some remarks to make, probably you could also take this time and we will be alert that any participant that is raising the hand or typing in something will be given a chance and we can interject at any moment.
Maybe Joshua, can I say something?
Yes, sure, Jen. Please proceed.
Okay, it's Lydia.
Oh, Lydia, sorry. Please proceed, Lydia.
It's okay. It's okay. So I just noticed. I just want to respond to something that I saw in the poll, the one that was what has been your greatest challenge in your agribusiness? And I think, if I'm not wrong, capital access to capital or credit ranked at 66.7%. So I just want to tie this with the changing policy landscape. So you find that in 2016, there was the signing of the Paris Agreement, and countries committed to lower the temperature, to make interventions towards global warming, either by reducing carbon emissions or making building resilience on areas that have already been ravaged by climate change. So to this extent, we also now, a lot of traditional financing has moved into the climate change space. So our government has proceeded to ensure that especially the SMEs are able to tap into this resource. So 2 weeks ago, the Kenya Commercial Bank was accredited by the Green Climate Fund. So the Green Climate Fund is a financial mechanism of the United Nations Framework on Climate Change Convention. So this is going to be one of the facilities that is going to be very instrumental in financing both mitigation and adaptation measures to climate change. However, you cannot access this funding directly. You have to go through an accredited entity. So previously, we only had the National Environmental Management Authority, which is a government institution that is an accredited entity. So even for us in the private sector, the only way to access GCF funding was through NEMA. But now we have KCB accredited in the private sector. So what this means is that now as an SME or as soccer, from the lessons that we take from the She Trades Masterclass, we are able to now actually develop a GCF or a Green Climate Fund proposal that can be supported to fund SMEs in the French beans, in the avocado value chains, or in the peas in pod. But now there is a caveat, there is a disclaimer. So as part of accreditation process, KCB has to demonstrate that its processes and its organizational policies are pro-climate change. So by extension, the Kenya Commercial Bank will be extended this obligation to the portfolio, the loan portfolios that it will be advancing to the SMEs. So what this means is that for you to access Green Climate Fund through Kenya Commercial Bank, it means you have to demonstrate climate change adaptation or mitigation. let's give an example. If you're in French beans, and French beans is a heavy consumer of pesticides, you have to demonstrate in your business practices how you are transitioning to a more sustainable way of production. If you're in avocado, what ways are you preventing the emission of carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases into the environment? Are you planting trees? Are you building a water catchment? Now that we are learning that as the temperatures rise, it's going to become more difficult to produce, and with the water scarcity issue. So those are some of the things that going forward, it's very, very important that our entrepreneurs, our SMEs start factoring in. So these are some of the other advisory services that come into play, that as soccer, we are able to work with you and let you know what is the best way to embed climate change adaptation or mitigation to your business strategy as a way of building resilience. And this is because climate change costs the country between 2 and 2.4% of GDP every 5 years. So you can imagine that's a significant cost, and that's why the government has heavily invested in these kinds of interventions. So I just thought it's important that going forward, we understand that access to credit may come with additional conditionalities as part of the government's commitment in honoring, as part of the requirements of government in honoring the commitments it has made to international instruments such as the UNFCCC. Thank you very much, Joshua.
Thank you, Lydia. I think it's good that you brought that topic up. And what immediately comes to my mind is the issue then of new entrants into this business. Because when you talk about climate change and adaptability and the transitioning, it means you are just dealing with the organizations. They may be the SMEs, but you are dealing with organizations that are already in that chain, in that stream. What is the place then for new entrants who do not have, a basic standpoint, who don't really need any adaptation or transition, but are actually starting afresh? What is their place, and how then can they be part of the access, the financial access that we talk about?
Okay, thank you very much, Joshua, for that question. So you realize whether you are a veteran in production or a new entrant, the conditions and the requirements still stand. And this is the reason, because as it is, we've already been so heavily ravaged by climate change as a country. So the government has prioritized climate change adaptation. So we are talking about the issues of digging, having dams for water collection, renewable energy now falls under mitigation because we are reducing emissions. So you find that everyone is required to make a commitment, and especially if you're a business enterprise. So what has come to the fore is that it is an all hands on deck. So to combat climate change, there is no discrimination. It is everyone, whether you're civil society, private sector, at whatever level, even as a startup. And I'll give an example. With the G20 countries and a lot of developed countries, they have started mainstreaming climate-related financial disclosures. So you find that in the developed world, as you make your disclosures on your annual the financial reporting that is done annually, now there's an additional, it's voluntary, but it's an additional obligation to declare climate-related risks. So I'll give an example. An insurance company in the US, in California, went bankrupt because of the fires that ravaged the country in 2018. So the payouts were so heavy they had to declare bankruptcy. So if you're in a region that, for example, is going to be ravaged, like what Apollo or I think Jen was saying, that if there's a flood and then you lose all your crop. So that is a climate change, climate-related financial disclosure. Because if there's a flood, you are likely to lose all your crop, which is going to put you at a worse off. So when a bank is financing you going forward, disclosure of that kind of information is going to be very, very, very critical, so that they also are able to know what kind of risk they are taking on board. So as you disclose, then you also have to demonstrate what mitigation measures, how are you preventing that risk from eroding all your business profitability and even just the existence. So now going forward, then it's important that you as a new entrant look at it holistically. Again, I can't overemphasize the need for advisory services, because it is at that point when you're crafting your business strategy that it becomes imperative for you to embed climate change interventions, whether they could be adaptation, that is as in the for example, like those in horticulture and especially French beans, the having a water reservoir, meaning that even if there is a drought, your market access will not be interrupted because of a drought, and that will make all the difference between when you're seeking financing, because you have gone an extra step to ensure that you have taken insurance of some sort against climate change impact. Then you find that you become a more a desirable client to a financial institution as opposed to someone. So while it is a voluntary thing, it is going to be a very significant in differentiating who gets access to finance, to insurance, and where investors are actually going to be directing their money. So yeah, I think it's important for all businesses at this point in time. Those who have been in the business for long, they start looking towards it for business continuity. Those who are just coming in, to avoid unnecessary interruptions in your cash flows or even your ability to continue in business uninterrupted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lydia, for that clarification. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we are just at the point that we will say goodbye. But before we do that, maybe I'll just go back on one round of to the panelists, just to give us what they can summarize for us for not only today, but even for the sessions that are past, in just a few minutes before we call in our CEO to give us his final words. May I start with the ladies? So Jen, could you start off? And then Lydia, we finalize with Apollo.
Thanks, Joshua. I'd like to thank SheTrades for giving us SOCA this opportunity to offer our services online. This has really been very enriching even for me. I have learned a lot from my colleagues. I hope that the information that the participants have gotten will not sit with them. They can still spread it to their neighbors, their fellow farmers, their group members, because at the end of the day, information is power. You need to get everybody to understand what you're doing. The days of keeping information to yourself with the assumption that you are positioning yourself better in the market, those days are gone. We are better off working together and having the same product in the same at the same quality, produced in a similar manner that we can all vouch for. We have strength in that base of production than being the only one producing this product. So please feel free to impart your neighbors and your fellow farmers. We are open here at SOCA to give the information required for optimizing your production. We are very passionate about helping smallholders get to a level where they can actually make money from their enterprises. But please note that agriculture should be taken as a serious business, not as a fallback plan, which is happening now. Look at what is happening, that now we can't go to our formal employment. We have decided to grow things in the shambas, which is good for agriculture. But you see now, agriculture si ya kubahatisha. It is not something that it is not a try and error thing. It should be taken seriously, plan for it well. With the coming of the ASTGS, the Agriculture Sector Transformation and Growth Strategy, which the government rolled out, it's supposed to run from 2021, I think, to 2029. There is a lot of emphasis on aggregation. Register with your county that this is what you're doing and this is what I'm producing. There is strength in numbers. Let us produce together, let us produce professionally, and let us at least have an advantage going into the market than where we were before. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen, for that good summary. Lydia, could you also give us your side of the summary?
Thank you very much, Joshua. And thank you so much. I'd like to thank SOCA, SheTrades, the participants for making it a worthwhile 6 weeks. It has been a lot of learning. It has also been a very exciting time to just understand how different parts of the value chains connect and work together in concert to ensure that the farmers are working, getting competitive by the day. So it has been exciting, and going forward, I think given the impact of cross-cutting issues, I don't know whether we do a deep dive going forward so that we, rather than just hurriedly rushing over them, entrepreneurs and business people are able to have a full appreciation of what kind of impact these are having, because ultimately this is what is used as non-tariff measures, or non-tariff, they're the ones that ultimately translate to non-tariff barriers. So it becomes very important to do that, to understand them fully. So it has been exciting, quite a lot of learning. And I also look forward to getting the value chains that we have been focusing on, just getting to the next level, increased volumes, and even the value in terms of contribution to the foreign exchange. And yes, for affordability of advisory services, I think I hope that by now the farmers, the smallholder farmers, the participants who are in the production processes of these value chains are beginning to appreciate the complexity and the intensity of the advisory services, and therefore now begin to factor it in as a cost as part of their competitive advantage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Thanks for that summary. Apollo, it's your turn. Can you wind up for us on what your final thoughts are?
Yeah, thanks, Joshua, and thank you to my fellow panelists, to the organizers, SOCA, SheTrades. This has one informative, class setup, and I would wish we could transform this as well into a more elaborate field and practical training scenario with shared experiences across various farming practices, as well as seeing what has been mentioned here in real practice. I believe the sort of networks that are usually established come through from the basis of well-established forums that would be able now to translate ideas into value. So I'm really thankful, and I'm sure we are literally available to provide guidance, to share learnings, and to see how we can inject prosperity and to continue playing a leading role not only in the region but in Africa as far as a leading exporters of fresh produce into other destinations. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Apollo. We lost your last bit of it, but nonetheless, I think we got most of it from you. And thank you very much for that summary. I would like now to invite our CEO, Ricky. I see he's still mute. Ricky, could you speak to us before we wind up? Ricky, please proceed.
Thanks, Joshua. And again, just to appreciate all the panelists who have been with us over the last 7 or 8 weeks since this session began, and to appreciate ITC SheTrade's Commonwealth program, whom we have collaborated with on this particular segment. I don't want to dilute by repeating what the panelists have said. I believe mine is really to emphasize that from the time we began the masterclass in May of this year, and working through this extremely difficult period where not only personal health is challenged, but also the systems that support our livelihoods are challenged. As an association, SOCA is committed to making information available and collaborating with other stakeholders in order to ensure that our food systems remain robust and very responsive, both in the domestic space and also in the international and regional market. There are big opportunities out there. I think that's very clear to all of us. And it is only by strengthening the network and collaborating further with other stakeholders that we can actually achieve optimization. So we invite all participants to engage with us. We have reached out to you, I believe, on your personal emails, and we just ask you to get in touch with us. It may be a bit of time turning things around, but we are committed to addressing all the queries and issues that you raise so that we can contribute to making your agribusiness enterprises much more profitable and sustainable. Thank you very much, Joshua, for the opportunity to make some remarks.
Okay, thank you very much, Ricky. And we come to the close of this webinar session. I would like to, of course, also take this great pride in thanking the panelists. I think you guys have done a lot of work. You are actually brain boxes walking around. And thank you very much for dissecting a lot of these issues that are related to our productivity, related to our market, and also to the policies that govern us. I hope that the audience have taken a cue of it, of everything that has been discussed here, and will practice them as we go along. We will be advised in time again for our next series, which will be discussed later on by the management team, and we will be advised accordingly. For now, we close this session, and thank you very much again for participating. Thank you for taking your time, and God bless you all. Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you, Joshua. Just a word to our panelists, just to stay on briefly as we wind up. Thanks.